We are back on the couch.
It feels good to be back.
Yeah, we've had a fast few weeks of fall.
Yeah.
But now we're settled, we're back on the couch, and today we're going to talk about how to prepare for a healthy marriage.
Yeah.
Not just any marriage.
Yeah.
Healthy one.
I remember before we met and then during the first few months of us getting to know each other, a question I asked myself was like, what does it look like for me to prepare well as an individual for a dating relationship and then ultimately for a marriage? And I think that there's been a few things we've been able to learn over the last 7 to 8 years about this. And so we want to share a bit of a framework or some helpful tips that might serve you as you maybe exist as a single, or maybe you're in a dating relationship preparing for marriage.
Yeah, because we believe that you don't just kind of like stumble or float into a healthy marriage. It really takes intentional decisions and thought to make that happen. And so,
And it doesn't have to start, like preparing for marriage doesn't have to start when you're engaged. It should actually start before you even meet someone.
Yeah, so true. So we want you to imagine 3 circles in your head.
Yeah.
So an outer circle, a middle circle, and an inner circle.
Yeah.
The outer circle is your people.
Okay.
The middle circle is your past and patterns. And the inner circle is your fidelity. So first we'll talk about your people.
Yeah, so these are the people who you do life with, who you give your best time to. And I think it's so important for you to see your people as a training ground and for you to give your people a voice.
So training ground, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot of things you need in a healthy marriage. You need selflessness, you need generosity, you need sacrifice, you need thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
And when you have close friendships, you can actually practice those things with them. It comes naturally, obviously, with your close friends. You want to be generous to them. You want to be selfless to them. You want to be thoughtful in the way you are a friend to them.
Yeah.
And it's just a really great place to practice that before you're entering into a marriage.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people underestimate the value of even living with family before marriage. Like, I think in the Western culture, we're pretty quick to move out as like a statement of I'm older now.
Yeah.
But we sometimes neglect how helpful of a space living with family is in developing our patience, developing our self-control, being able to serve people that we're unguarded around. Because like the reality is, it's easy to like wash the dishes every day when you're living with a roommate who's kind of looking at you to hold your end of the bargain. But when you're like living with your mom and siblings, you can kind of be like, But it's like the idea of like living with family members and being able to learn, okay, what does it look like for me to put the needs of my sister or my brother over mine, or the needs of my parents over mine?
Yeah.
I think it actually more closely resembles a marriage than even living with a roommate would.
Yeah.
And so your people aren't just your friends that you hang out with, but it's also the people you're living with.
Yeah.
And it's a training ground for you to almost like develop some of those skills and some of those virtues that are necessary for marriage.
Yeah. The second thing is that your people should have a voice in your life.
Yeah. So I think that this has to do with the things that you need to improve upon. I think that we all have blind spots, like things in our life that we do that are either bad habits or things that would affect future relationships for the worse. That the only people who can see that is our community. And I think that there's two main ways to approach our blind spots and even like giving or not giving our community a voice. One goes, oh, like I'm pretty self-aware. I don't need to hear from you. You know what I mean? Like you can be in my life, but just don't speak into my life. And then the other is like, oh, I recognize that I'm naive. There's gonna be parts of myself that I don't recognize how that specific trait or habit affects my relationships. So I just want to give you the voice and make sure you know you have permission to speak into my life and call me out when I need to be called out.
That's so key. I feel like explicitly giving your friends the permission is so key, because yes, there's friends out there that maybe will take the step and be like, hey, I noticed this about you. Like, what is that? But that is hard to do.
Yeah.
But if they know they've been given the permission and that trust is really there, then you're kind of making it a little bit easier for them to help you in a sense, to help you improve, to help you be refined and be more ready for a healthy marriage when the time comes.
And I think that the most helpful thing in this like concentric circle is assuming that you're less self-aware than you think you are. Because yeah, even the most self-aware person, like there's gonna be things about yourself that you can only find out when you're doing life closely with people.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was 22, I lived with my brother. I was starting in my career, and my brother moved in with me, and we hadn't lived together in the same house for like 4 years, but he moved in with me. And through living with him, there were parts of my character and personality that I realized were still underdeveloped as someone who is kind of maturing as an adult, but I didn't know it until I lived closely with my brother again. And I'm like, oh, it was easy for me to say certain things or do certain things. There were things about myself that were revealed through living closely with my brother, who was my main person in that season, that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so it's so important for us to assume that we don't know as much about ourselves as we think we do, and allow people to speak into our lives with hopes that we would come out the other side a better future spouse or better future partner, because we've been able to work on ourselves. And I think with this, there's something that we advise you to do called giving someone the no card. Can you explain what the no card is? We coined that term. We coined that term, the no card.
So the no card is for when you're actually in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you can give your friends the no card to basically say like, hey man, or hey, I just don't.
Hey girl.
Hey girl. I just don't think that's the person for you.
Yeah.
And they should have some reasons behind it. Hopefully they just aren't like, I just don't think you should be with them.
Yeah.
Hopefully you trust them enough that their opinion like has some weight to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, giving the people the no card is important. And I remember when we were actually dating, my best friends could tell me and you were getting really serious. And we were long distance, so my friends didn't spend like a ton of time with Daniel. They weren't really seeing our relationship up close. So I think when they saw how serious things were getting, they were kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And they took me out for dinner and just kind of sat me down and asked me a bunch of questions about our relationship. And they did have the permission to have that no card in my life, especially if I had no answers to their concerns and questions. But after the conversation, I was able to like, you know, have them be at peace and at rest that our relationship was in a really good spot. And they were like totally on board and totally supportive after that. But I really appreciated that they felt comfortable enough to take me out and ask me those questions.
Yeah, because I think what often happens is that people are really connected with their friends and they say, oh, my friends know every part of me. They can speak to every part of my life. But it's almost like the moment someone steps into a relationship, people like distance a bit and say, oh, you can speak to any area but my relationship because we're in love. And so I think the hope here is that people would be able to almost like assume that when you're in a relationship, sometimes your emotions get the best of you. Sometimes, again, there's blind spots in the relationship that you can't quite see because you're in it, because you're an active participant. But giving someone the no card allows them to, without having to face any relational like consequence, be able to say, hey, I don't think it's the one, or just challenge the relationship in a way that could help you out in the long run.
Yeah. So that's the outer circle. It's your people, your community, whatever you want to call it. And then the next circle in is your past and your patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's how you relate with your past and your patterns. I think your past can be anything from childhood. It can be ways you've learned to cope with conflict or stress in unhealthy ways. It could be patterns of like even coping with stress, coping with disappointment, frustration in ways that are maybe unhealthy. Could be addiction. And I think it's so important for you to face that head on.
Yeah.
Because you bring your patterns and your past into every relationship you're a part of.
Yeah.
So it's so important for you to be able to name, one, how your past affects your present and how your patterns affect your present as well.
Yeah.
I think there's an invitation in there for your past to be something that has refined you because you've been able to process it through and it's strengthened you. But I think that takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I think you have to name what had happened in the past and be able to almost like come out the other side saying like, oh, I'm refined because of it, but I'm not scarred by it.
Yeah, and sometimes we can be almost unaware of how our past has affected us. Like, I feel like growing up, I kind of always thought like, oh, I had a great childhood, like pretty uneventful life in a good way.
Yeah.
Not a lot of big stories of grief or trauma. But as I got older, I started to realize like how my life experience has maybe impacted me in a negative way. And I remember one time when we were dating, we were long distance and we just had a couple more hours together. And I remember you were really set on finding this bag or something. And I was like, no, let's stop finding the bag. I just want to spend more time with you. And you kept wanting to find the bag. So then eventually I was like, Daniel, like, no, stop trying to find the bag. And I kind of yelled at you. And you were like, wait, why are you yelling at me right now? And in that moment, I remember it almost felt like I was like looking at myself, like outside of myself. And I was like, why am I yelling? And I realized it's because like all growing up, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And all growing up, I was able to yell at my siblings to get them to do what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And I saw it coming out in my relationship, which was so interesting. So it's so important to be like self-aware of how your past impacts you and contributes to the patterns and like the negative patterns in your life now. And then also to pursue help. So whether that's through like counseling or journaling or just healing in some way, help and healing, I think that's important as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And the last one is fidelity. I think that it's no secret that sometimes relationships end in unfaithfulness. We know the word infidelity, but oftentimes we don't talk about its counterpart, which is fidelity, which is almost like this having an eye for one person. And I think that before you enter in a relationship, you have to be fully resolved to the fact that like, oh, I'm committing to one person while I'm dating them, or one person for life if I'm talking marriage. And so it's so important for you to recognize tendencies in yourself that lean towards infidelity, where it's like maybe you're at a mall and you notice yourself almost like even in a relationship being drawn to like seek out the attention of the opposite gender, or you're meeting eyes with people, or you're desiring validation from the opposite gender. And I think it's so important for you to work on that so that you're not dealing with that in marriage. Because I think sometimes people think it just switches on.
Yeah, like it's just going to disappear, but you don't want to be wrestling that through with marriage.
Yeah.
You just want to be like, to know that that's not like an issue for you, and you're fully committed. You're fully okay with being committed to life, for life, to one person.
Yeah, and I think some people need to name just before they get into a relationship, before they get married, that I'm not at the point yet where I can commit to one person. And I think that you just got to name that and make sure you're able to confront that and make the decision not to get into a relationship yet.
Yeah.
If you feel like that's difficult, maybe you want to still date around and see what you like. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think it's so important for people to really focus on what does it look like to be a person of fidelity, and make sure you're bringing almost like a person of fidelity into a relationship, not a person of infidelity.
Yeah.
And you've kind of had a track record of being faithful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. So outer circle, your people, then your past and patterns, and then the core of it is your fidelity.
Yeah.
That's it. That's part of what contributes to a healthy marriage.
And being healthy people. Be a person in community. Let your community be your training ground, and give them a voice.
Yep.
Deal with your past and patterns, and then make sure you're faithful. Make sure you're a person of fidelity.
Thanks so much for watching this. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. We would love to have you guys a part of our community, and turn your notifications on so that you can see when our new videos come.
And if you think this would serve someone, make sure to share it with them, because it'd help us and it'd likely help them as well.
And if you like this video, make sure to watch this video next. We'll talk to you guys next week.